I'm Stephanie, and welcome to Wine Club. This is the playlist where I drink good wine while I whine about a bad book. And I'm really upset with today's pick because I had such high hopes for it. Unfortunately, I am going to be doing a review that I know is fully on board the unpopular opinion train. I'm reviewing Alex E. Harrow's Starling House. Now, fair warning, there will be spoilers in this review. If you want a spoiler-free version of this review, please watch my What I Read in October video. And as I say in all my reviews, this is solely about the book and not about the author as a person. I'm sure she is lovely and is talented, as this book has some rave reviews, and I know other YouTubers who have loved her work. But me, I was just stark raving mad by the end of this reading experience. This belongs on my bookshelf when I'm in hell. And if you love this book, I love that for you, truly. I do think that I am an outlier, and I would be a liar if I said that I liked this. But before I get too far along, let's go ahead and see what this book promised to be about. I dream sometimes about a house I've never seen. Opal is a lot of things. Orphan, high school dropout, full-time cynic, and part-time cashier. But above all, she's determined to find a better life for her younger brother Jasper. One that gets them out of Eden, Kentucky, a town remarkable for only two things: bad luck and E. Starling, the reclusive 19th century author of The Underland. Underland, I guess Wonderland, so I'll say Underland, who disappeared over 100 years ago. All she left behind were dark rumors and her home. Everyone agrees that it's best to ignore the uncanny mansion and its misanthropic heir, Arthur. Almost everyone, anyway. I should be scared, but in the dream, I don't hesitate. Opal has been obsessed with the Underland since she was a child. When she gets the chance to step inside Starling House and make some extra cash for her brother's escape fund, she can't resist. But sinister forces are digging deeper into the buried secrets of Starling House, and Arthur's own nightmares have become far too real. As Eden itself seems to be drowning in its own ghosts, Opal realizes that she might finally have found a reason to stick around. In my dream, I'm home. And now she'll have to fight. Welcome to Starling House. Enter, if you dare. At what point is she fighting for this? This book has a pretty lame ending, a la Breaking Dawn. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, I do want to say that the ideas and themes in this book are absolutely amazing. There is a good idea for a book here, but it almost gets too out of control with subplots that end up going nowhere. But at the same time, this book is also not letting itself fully go. The house is alive, but barely. The characterization is so thin that it's pretty much transparent. The plot spins its wheels for like 80% of the book until we're nearing the end, and then it's, oh shit, something needs to be happening, right? This book dragged for me. Again, I think this book gets distracted by its subplots to the detriment of telling a very strong story. This should have focused on like the town's curse, found family, and figuring out who you really are, while also maybe learning to let go of whatever's in your past or some inner darkness that is poisoning you from the inside out. But this book is trying to cram so many themes that I just don't think it does any of them really well. There were so many things here that I just could not give a shit about. Especially our leading lady. Why is Opal the fucking worst? Like, seriously, I haven't hated a main character this much in a while, and I hoped that the ending would just include her, like, having to do some sort of blood sacrifice, and then the beast would just take, like, all of hers. Because she doesn't deserve a happy ending to me. Now, I do think there is a way to bright, basically, like, the feral cat main character, but that arc kind of means that she'll become more trusting and vulnerable as she learns to open herself up to others and recognize that not everybody is out to get her. She'll learn to, like, retract her claws. But Opal is constantly just sitting there, like, with a nail file, just sharpening hers, even though everyone seems to be super nice to her in this. And at first, I sympathize with Opal and her taking care of her brother Jasper, but then she just really started to annoy me, and I kind of started to hate her. She's supposed to be mid-20s, like I think 26, maybe even 27, kind of ending on the back half. But she kind of sounds like Edward Cullen and is stuck at like 17. Like she refuses to just have a conversation with anyone. And then she just constantly bites the hand that feeds her. She is so antagonistic toward people that are just trying to help. I get that her life has been tough and that she is guarded, but I also really struggle to find any redeeming qualities about her. Like, she's not even funny when she's being mean. Like, at least give me something. And then she's sitting there being all like, I don't owe anyone anything. But like, she kind of does. She lives rent free and then gets paid very well when she starts working at Starling House. And yet she continues to steal from the people around her and insult them while she's doing it. She also infantilizes her brother and makes some choices that are way out of bounds and extremely controlling. Like, she's saving for this private academy so he can leave their shithole town and have a better life, and that is admirable. But she never tells him about this or even asks if this is what he wants. She is so sure that he needs her to do this, but he kind of doesn't. He is also self-sufficient. He also has his own plans for his life. He's been applying for jobs and getting requests for interviews. What does Opal do? Well, she logs into his email and deletes them because she's getting him out of there. What the fuck, Opal? Like, before you delete it, how about then you spoil your surprise and tell him that you're paying for his tuition to go somewhere else? Like, you can't really be pissed at him when he doesn't know you are doing this. You're both doing things in secret, but you think you are the only one who is right. And she's constantly harping that everything she does is for Jasper. Again, admirable, but what the things you're doing is stealing from your jobs. I don't really think that's for him. And it kind of makes it so it's going to be pretty hard to pay that tuition when you've been charged with theft, Opal. Like, I also have to wonder, where is her money going? They live rent-free at this motel, she doesn't have a car, and she is always eating Pop-Tarts. I know that she works a minimum wage job, but surely she can afford more than Pop-Tarts if, like, rent isn't like everywhere else in the world and it's taking up like 70% of your paycheck. And then there's a point in the book where, so Arthur is the Starling House caretaker. She's such an absolute bitch to him. Like, they're talking about their living situations at one point, and she is so nasty to him simply because he inherited this house. She's all, do you even know what rent is? Of course you don't. Opal, sweetie, we're in a pot calling the kettle black kind of situation here because you don't pay rent yourself either. Like, he finds out at one point that she can't even afford a fucking coat, so he gives her his mother's. He finds out she walks to work, so he gives her his dad's truck. He finds out that she's eating Pop-Tarts for every meal, and he starts making extra food at breakfast and lunch so she can actually get a hot meal. Does she say thank you? Nope. What does she do? She continues to steal things from his house. Am I supposed to like her? Now, in this book, she does have like two friends, and I use that term pretty loosely. Because again, when they are helping her, she has hit rock bottom, and she takes the time to insult them. She's figuring out ways she can tease them later. Like, good lord, she is the worst. I also have to say with this, the writing style and I just did not get along. I'm not a fan of purple prose, and I found this book to be heavily overwritten. I felt like I was treading through molasses while reading this. Now, I am going to steal a little snippet of a review from Goodreads. This is from a user named Elliot Scribbles, and it reads, Alex E. Harrow can clearly write, but in Starling House, the prose works against the story. Every sentence reaches for meaning. Every object, every room, every glance is described with dramatic weight. It's exhausting. At times, the book reads like it's trying to win a literary award in every paragraph. The result? A dense, overworked atmosphere that smothers any real emotion or narrative momentum. And back to my review, I feel like I can't even really talk about the plot because it feels like we go nowhere for so long. Again, there is a cool idea of this essentially haunted house calling out to people in their dreams to come be its caretaker. But we have Opal, who is basically a human skid mark, and she is tired of not understanding what her dreams mean. Why is she dreaming of this house? She goes to the Starling House and demands that Arthur give her a high-paying job. He's an idiot, so he does, even though he knows that he shouldn't because he needs to keep people away from the house. Then don't hire her, dummy. This isn't that complex. Your house has shadow monsters protecting it. You've got giant fences. Don't open the door for her. Don't give her a key. Don't let her walk all over you. Anyway, Opal goes and demands a job, and she offers to clean the house. So she starts cleaning. She insults Arthur every single chance she gets, and again is stealing from him, putting candlesticks in her purse when she's clocking out for the end of the day and then demanding her cash payment, and decides to work on the weekends even though he didn't ask her to do this, and still demands that he pays her basically overtime because she's the one who wanted to come in and do this. So she's real curious about the house after reading the book by E. Starling or Eleanor Starling, and she's really intrigued because there's all these different people that have owned the house or been the heir to the house that have the last name Starling, even though we know for sure that they are not related in any way. So she wants to understand, what does it all mean? What's going on here? Though we do make sure to make a point of knowing that the current Mr. Starling is ugly. He's fugly. It is mentioned 90 billion times just how ugly this guy is. Do we get a solid description beyond just thick eyebrows and self-inflicted tattoos? Nope. But he is hideous. Apparently she's no looker either, as her crooked teeth are constantly mentioned every 10 pages. So anyway, Opal and her crooked teeth are now working at Starling House, making bank, and she secures a spot for Jasper at this private school. Huzzah! At the same time, there's this woman named Elizabeth Baines who starts following Opal and says she works for the major employer in town, Gravely Power. They supposedly have mineral rights to the land that the house sits on, and she seems very curious about the house and is trying to befriend Opal. Is this ever explained how she seems to know what the house is covering? No. But she does offer Opal oodles of money if she takes pictures and sends them information about the house and its layout and what the different rooms contain. Opal, because again, she doesn't owe anyone anything, agrees. Fuck Arthur, I'm gonna double cross him. And the sad thing is, the fucking Arthur actually does happen later. Apparently there's supposed to be some slow burn romance budding between these two, but I didn't buy it for 1 second. They're both hissing and snarling at each other, though Arthur is a little bit nicer at first, and then bam, they're kissing. The romance in this was just straight up bad, and it adds nothing to the overarching plot, and it happens right after a big moment, TM. So the big moment is she finds out that the monsters in Starling's book are very real. She sees Arthur being attacked by these shadow demons. Was I excited to see the monsters? Oh, yes. Was I disappointed because they're barely in the story? Oh, yes. She ends up helping Arthur battle these monsters and basically finds out he was called to the house to be its next warden, and it is his job to keep them contained, or if they escape, they will wreak havoc on the town. He lost his parents to these monsters that are hiding under the house, and he will do whatever is necessary to keep them secure, including putting up wards on both the house and himself. His tattoos are meant to keep these shadow monsters in check. Though one time in the past, he did have a little oopsies moment and wasn't careful enough, and a monster did get out. And that monster is the reason that Opal is an orphan. This monster rose up out of the ground and caused Opal's mom to drive off the road and into a river, where Opal was able to escape because she was also in the car with her mom. whereas her mom ended up drowning in the car as it continued to go down the river. And then later we find out that the reason Opal also survived is because Arthur was there trying to figure out what he needed to do with the shadow demon and was able to reach into the river and pull her out. She doesn't remember being saved, but she also never understood how she survived. Since then, Arthur has vowed that he is going to put an end to these monsters. There will be no more wardens of Starling House. He is going to end it. How? No, not a clue. I don't know, because we don't. For a book called Starling House, we barely spend any time in the house. Or if we are, it's watching Opal clean and Arthur make her lunch. What are we doing here? So Opal is shocked to learn that it was Arthur who saved her, but also put her mom in danger. There's a lot of conflicting emotions there. But she also finds out that her mom was essentially already marked as she finds out the truth about her mother's heritage. Remember Gravely Power, the major employer? It's a rich family that practically owns the entire town. Well, Opal is also a member of the Gravely family. Her mother was a Gravely, and those monsters specifically want Gravely blood, which brings up a major issue for me. So basically, we're saying that the house is kind of sentient. It can reach out to people. It sends messages to people in their dreams. But it also thirsts for Gravely blood. Why would it want Opal to be a warden if it wants to kill her and get her blood? We're doing it both ways. The math ain't mathin' for me. And that's also why we find out that she lives rent-free at this motel. She was told it was because her mom won a bet, which again, I'm like, this girl's supposed to be 26, 27 years old and thinks that this motel owner is gonna stick with this bet after the mom dies. But no, it's actually because of who Opal's family is. How she hasn't learned this before or no one let it slip is honestly beyond me. But now it's time for a Christmas miracle as she develops somewhat of a conscience and decides that she's done helping the evil Elizabeth get information about the house. She shouldn't be doing this to Arthur. So then Elizabeth starts blackmailing her and threatening harm against Jasper and makes it very clear that she knows a lot about Opal's life. She has studied her very carefully. Now, had Opal not agreed in the first place, I would find Elizabeth a lot more villainous, but Opal doesn't really have a leg to stand on here because she's the one who originally agreed to this. Had she said, no, I'm not going to spy for you, and then Elizabeth starts blackmailing her and doing all this, okay, I can understand why your hands are tied. But she was all great, pay me, and yep, I'll tell you whatever you need. Girl, you can't be this upset. And again, you're supposed to not trust anyone. What are we doing? So then Arthur, out of the goodness of his own heart, goes ahead and makes a pretty hefty donation to the private academy so that Opal doesn't have to worry about Jasper's tuition or his room or board. He wants her to stay away from the house because things are starting to get dangerous. Again, he's working on some sort of plan to end it. So potentially the monsters are getting more dangerous. I don't know. So Arthur basically tells her stay away from the house. And so she goes back to the motel and oops, it's on fire. She's arrested as some witness said that she did it. Then we have the motel owner, Bev, who is one of the people who has been very kind to Opal and lets her live there rent-free, comes to get her freed and bailed out of jail, and basically says Opal wasn't even on the property when this place caught fire. Now, there's obviously some sort of theme going on here with the police not trusting Opal and being corrupt, but it didn't really do anything with it. It didn't really go anywhere. I'm gonna throw it out there because it's part of the story, but it's not really making a resonant point. And then we have Bev's girlfriend Charlotte, who is the town's librarian, who has also been nice to Opal this entire time, even when she doesn't deserve it. Charlotte comes to Opal's aid as well. Now, the police officer is basically a walking homophobe, and at this point, Bev and Charlotte decide to announce their relationship, and they kiss, and the receptionist claps. I wish I was making this up. And Opal is sitting there just like making jokes and wondering how she can use this information to tease them later. Again, I wish I was making this up. Like, congratulations that you guys are finally out and happy about it. Like, that's great. But as soon as the receptionist started like clapping their kiss, again, are we 17? Like, what are we doing here? Most adults don't care. And with Opal basically being like, how can I use this information to make fun of them later, even though they're here to help me? Like, just shut the fuck up, Opal. These women are coming to bail you out of jail. They are coming to your defense. And can you just not be you for 30 seconds and just be grateful and kind and say thank you to them? But nope, she gets let go and then runs straight off to Starling House, even though Arthur told her to stay away. Obviously, she does not. She goes back to this house, and there's actually like a spicy scene here that I had to reread 3 times to understand. Like, is there actual penetration? Like, are they actually doing it? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Now, on the one hand, it's only like a paragraph, so it's not bad, but it's also not really adding anything to the story or characterization at the same time. And then it gets really worse. Oh, does it get worse? During their little activity session, Opal cries out, "Christ on a bicycle!" And I can't take that seriously. I'm sorry. This like hardened, angry person is calling out Christ on a bicycle as she's nearing completion. Like, are we sure about that? Then we also find out that the next morning she wakes up, Arthur is gone. He's left like this sword behind for her, and also a will stating that Opal gets the house, assuming there's going to be anything left of it. Again, I still have no idea what his plan here is. He's going to go into the basement to like kill the monsters. I don't know how he came to this conclusion that he even can, or like what his actual plan is, but Opal chases after him. And then en route, Elizabeth shows up, desperate to get into this house. The shadow monsters attack, and I also have no idea if Elizabeth was killed or not, or what she really knew. Like, what did she actually work for Gravely Power? Like, what? No idea. No idea. There's literally no payoff for this character. She's literally there to add drama and make it seem like Opal was a human being with feelings, as she just cared so much for Jasper that she was willing to take this woman's evil money and do her nefarious activities. And it's at this point that the book gets just really weird and sadly botches what could have been a really cool idea, as Opal is chasing after Arthur and gets below the house, and she finds that there's this river. And then she sees Arthur in the river, but it's kind of like, not like, or it's like he's sleeping. He's like Rip Van Winkle. Like, he's not dead, but he's in the river, but he's not like fully there. And then she also sees that Eleanor Starling is also lying in this river, but she has not aged. Like, she should be a crusty, dusty corpse, but she isn't. So Opal figures like he must have drank from the river, so she does, and then she's transported to Underland, the mythical place from Eleanor's book. She finds Eleanor here and sits down so Eleanor can dive into story time. She's literally just gonna tell her backstory. It's fucking story time at the climax of this book. Yay! So Eleanor just info dumps at the end. That is our ending. Just her saying, like, here's why things happen the way they did. So she explains that she was a Gravely, and her father left her everything, but then her uncle is a sick fuck and marries her, which, why was this necessary to the story? Then we find out that Eleanor found the river before the house was built on it, and she realizes that this river can bring your dreams to life. And so she dreamed for her family to be dead, or some shit, I don't know. So that's why Gravely's are all cursed in this town, and that's why the shadow monsters come after them, because they're being powered by Eleanor's wishes, I guess. This is a really fucked up version of Make-A-Wish Foundation. Now, there's some sort of reality warping battle for Starling House, And I laughed and laughed and laughed when Opal has the audacity to ask Eleanor to just, hey, can you stop being bitter and lashing out at people? Like, girl, be so for real right now. It's another Christmas miracle as somehow Opal does get Eleanor to let go of her rage. The monsters disappear as Eleanor is no longer dreaming of them. She finds Arthur and wakes him up, and he and Opal return to Starling House as the new wardens. Jasper is off in school and is thriving and visits every so often, and the end. Okay. The ending is a fever dream and tries to do too much. I mean, honestly, this entire book is trying to do too much. We spent most of the book going over the same things, but sure, let's cram a bunch of shit and a bunch of lore in at the end. Let's not really explain everything, and I guess we'll give everyone a happy ending. At the end of the day, I'm just so frustrated with this book. It has some really cool ideas and motifs, but it does fuck all with them. Like, what was the point of Elizabeth? Where was Opal's arc and her growth? Why is there a romance in this that has absolutely no chemistry? Why is it so important that we know how hideous Arthur is? Why were people drawn to this house to keep monsters contained if they're being controlled by Eleanor, who wants the town to suffer for letting what happened to her happen? Why would the house want a Gravely descendant as a warden? Does the warding on the house or Arthur's body even do anything? Why isn't more done with this river of dreams? Can we just get some explanation about Eleanor's starlings and her taking of their name? Why is the writing so bloated in this? Why does nothing happen for the first 100 pages? Why is this so convoluted? I'll never know. Like, this book just feels like it wanted to do a lot, but wasn't competent at being intricate and tying everything up. Like, there are some nods to Beauty and the Beast and Alice in Wonderland and the Underworld and Hades and Persephone and the River Styx and Icarus and more. But it just didn't meld them in a way that really worked for me. Like, it just kind of feels like we're just calling out like random other things that, like, see how literary this is? Symbolism. And I'm like, okay, I guess. Also, after thinking about it a little bit, I do wonder if this may, at one time, this is just my speculation, if this may have been like Hermione Snape fanfic, because her teeth, the crooked teeth, are her most prominent feature, his greasy looks, and just looking at some of the illustrations in the book, I could see it. Now, again, not saying that's true, that's just my own, like, opinion here. But I might not be too far off base. I'm sorry, I did not get the hype with this book. I thought this was a slog. I thought we had a horrible main character, and I still don't think that this book knew what it wanted to be. This reads like a few story ideas that were being thrown around, and then the author forgot that they committed to turning those ideas into a cohesive story, and then their agent reached out being like, yo, you got a manuscript for me? And so this was quickly cobbled together. Like, I'm sorry, I only gave this 1 star. I was just so checked out by the end of this. I just wanted this to be over. For a book that's like, I think just over 300 pages, this read like it was 700 pages. It just feels like we're not going anywhere. I wanted this to make sense. I wanted to be wowed like Owen Wilson, but I feel like him in Wedding Crashers when he's all depressed at the end. I was just exhausted reading this. But I will say, I do love the beautiful cover. And again, there are some really cool ideas here. I just don't think they came together well in the end. Okay, if you do have any recommendations for books about haunted houses or stories about visiting like a magical land, I would absolutely love to hear about them. Please share your recommendations in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for joining me at One.